Started. Hi there. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Victor, your surrogacy consultant and marketing manager here at Tammuz Family North America. And I'm honored to share with you the remarkable journey of Tammuz Family today. A journey that has transformed the dreams of parenthood into reality for many families worldwide. Today, we'll get a chance to explore the world of surrogacy and discover how Tammuz can help you achieve your family formation goals. But before we continue, we have muted your microphones, but feel free to ask questions in the chat as we progress through the webinar, and we'll try to pick the most common questions and answer as many of them towards the end of our presentation. But if your question is not answered, use the QR code to schedule a complimentary consultation where we can provide all the details of your specific situation. Throughout the webinar, you'll see the QR codes placed at different places. As we go through it, just make sure you scan it, and when it takes you to the website, on the top right-hand side of the website, there's a choice that says book a meeting, and you can choose either to book a meeting with John or with myself at that point. All right. So we can move on to the next question, to the next slide here. Okay, so what exactly is surrogacy? Who pursues it and why? So intended parents pursue gestational surrogacy to start or grow their families when they can't achieve this goal conventionally. Surrogacy at Tammuz is a means by which, if applicable, intended parents harvest eggs, donate a spermatozoa with the help of a top-notch clinical partner, and then through IVF create embryos that are transferred to a vetted gestational surrogate who will carry and deliver the baby so that the intended parent can have a baby who is genetically linked to them in most cases. This progress is complex and involves third parties navigating regulatory hurdles with surrogates, egg donors, with local legal authorities. This involves lots of experience, competence, and empathy. And it is our mission at Tammuz to provide families and parents with all the necessary tools to be able to accomplish this. Now, can you still see the correct one?
No, now we see, I think we see the draft version.
Yeah.
You moved back into what you were before. There you go. Now I can see, yeah.
Okay. So,
Now we're back. Bear with us, we're trying to figure this out. Ah. Oh, that's good. You can put that menu up there.
I'll just read it off of the computer. It's easier.
Okay. Oh, there. Although now I'm seeing what you're reading off of, not that.
Yeah.
Go back to what you were doing before.
So which one can you see
No,
now?
I still see the draft version, not the presentation. Sorry about this, we're just figuring this out. I'll go back to there. Okay, I still see that. And no, okay, now I see that. What do you see on your screen?
Still see the presentation at all.
Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. Now I don't see that. Now we're back where we were. So if you scroll down, you scroll down that. Okay. What happens when you go to the next slide? Slide 2. Okay.
Can you see?
Yeah, no, now it's good. Now it's exactly it. Yeah. Perfect.
Good. So, okay, so before I move forward, I would like to introduce you to Tammuz Family's North American, Tammuz Family's North America office team. Joining me is Jon Mozes. He's the manager of our North American Territory office. He has vast experience as a surrogacy consultant and as a case manager, plus knows exactly what it is like to be an intended parent, having gone through 2 surrogacy journeys himself with Tammuz. Also with us today here is Sebastian behind me. He's one of our knowledgeable case managers for intended parents on journeys in Argentina, in Mexico, and Colombia. And next to him on the slide is Derek Weaver, a deeply experienced case manager supporting IPs on journeys in the United States, in Argentina, and in Colombia. And additionally, and finally, is Sineb Benani, the newest member of our case management team. She is multilingual and has significant professional experience working with parents parents and children, and currently supports IPs in journeys in Argentina and in Colombia. We're all part of the Tammuz Family, an international surrogacy, fertility, and egg donation agency. We offer a full range of comprehensive and guaranteed surrogacy and IVF programs dedicated to turning your dream of parenthood into reality. But before we dive into what, the why, and how we help intended parents go through their journeys, I'll let Jon and Sebastian briefly introduce themselves and describe their vital roles in helping intended parents like you. So we'll begin with you, Jon.
Thank you very much, Victor, for that introduction. And thank you for moderating this webinar. This is actually the first webinar of its kind that the North American Territory Office has conducted. So this is kind of brand new for us, even though we've been doing other things for quite a while. And in that sense, I've been at the helm of the North American office since its inception in 2020. It was when Tammuz Family decided to establish formally a footprint in North America to help intended parents who live in the USA or Canada become parents to surrogacy. As Victor has mentioned, I have gone on 2 journeys myself with my husband with Tammuz, so I know quite distinctly what it's like to be in intended parents' shoes. Most likely, some of the participants here have, I was in their shoes not too long ago. And in the time since I've become the North American Territory Office Manager, I have case managed, as Victor mentioned. I also am a surrogacy consultant, and now I'm moving more into development and marketing with Victor. And we have accompanied at this point over 100 parents in the last 4 years through journeys, achieving successful live births in many of the destinations we'll be talking to you about shortly. And so that is my role in the company these days.
What about you?
And I'm Sebastian, as you know, and I'm one of the other 3 case managers here. And we are your contact person for anything related to your journey with us. So any update that we get from the clinic or from headquarters, it will come directly from us. And if you have any questions about the process or about any of the results that we receive from the clinic, we will guide you and explain you everything. And at the same time, we facilitate the communication and the scheduling of all the appointments your egg donors and surrogates will have. So we will be on top of everything. And again, our main role is to have that relationship with you guys where you feel that supported and you have a clear understanding of each step in the process.
Thank you, Sebastian. And Sebastian will be moderating the chat. So as you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And towards the end, he'll go over the most common ones and we'll choose them to discuss and answer them to the best of our ability. Now, I wanted to ask Jon a couple of questions since you've already gone through surrogacy yourself. Kind of what did surrogacy mean to you as a hopeful parent as you look to grow your family? And why did you choose Tammuz? And what was the best aspect of your journey with Tammuz?
Those are good questions. Well, I'll save the last for last. What did it mean to me as a hopeful parent? Well, first of all, I wanted to be a parent. I didn't actually know how I was going to do it. As a gay man, I'm a gay married man at the time that my husband and I started to think seriously about having a baby, and was at that point only a baby. And I wanted a genetically linked child. This, just by virtue of what surrogacy is, this was the means to achieve that goal. Tammuz Family was founded by Jon Mozes, in 2008. I've known Daron for a lot longer than that. So I had already pretty good insights into what surrogacy was and what it could mean. But until my husband and I decided to take the plunge, I didn't know what it would, specifically do for us, other than ideally land us as parents, which it certainly has. So those were some of the main reasons why I looked to surrogacy. But with Tammuz, it was this personal connection, first of all. And I also knew that I would be in good hands without actually knowing that, without having done it yet. And that was very important, to feel like I was going to be working with an outfit of people who really had our backs.
And who've done it before themselves.
And have done them. Yeah, that's the other big thing, is most of us, and now that I can count myself among the us who work as directors and territory managers, have gone through surrogacy personally. So that's a big distinction among many agencies that we could work with, that we were looking at. We weren't only looking at Tammuz. We were being good researchers at the time, but even knowing what we already knew and then knowing what we learned through researching other companies, I really knew that without having any proof yet, that we were probably in the best set of hands possible to achieve the goal that we really were set on achieving.
Okay, and handling all the IP's journeys that you handle on a daily basis, what is that?
Oh, you meant to, I was gonna tell you what aspect of the journey that I found was the best part of it.
Okay,
I mean, as people know, once they embark on journeys, there are lots of ups and downs that happen in a pregnancy, let alone in a surrogacy pregnancy. So in hindsight, it's 2020. If I started to take apart our journeys, and there were two journeys in which we, had a good result here, maybe not a good result there. I could say, well, this wasn't fun, this was fun, this was really kind of harrowing. I mean, not that it was truly harrowing. It's very hard, actually, in hindsight, to say what's not good or what's negative. And this goes for any surrogacy. I mean, the result is the key thing here, and that's very much what Tammuz is about. We'll talk about that in a bit. The fact that we got through it, more than one piece, we ended up with 2 kids, we achieved our goals, we had good support, all of it in that sense, the up and the down, the bad with the good, and I put those in quotes, really made it, the whole thing was the best thing. I know it's sort of somewhat of a kind of somewhat convoluted answer, but I really mean that in the sense that we not only had kids, and did it in this very stable, relatively speaking, way. But as parents, as a couple, we enriched our lives, immeasurably, which is also something that sets people who go through surrogacy apart from people who do it the old-fashioned way, per se. I mean, I'm generalizing, but that is the best part, is the kind of humans we became, the enriched experience that everyone embarking on a surrogacy journey will have as a result of just deciding to do it.
That's a very good answer.
Yeah.
And
Anyways,
besides your personal experience, how does handling these surrogacy journeys and helping parents manage it, what does that mean to you professionally? And what does surrogacy mean for intended parents in terms of their personal growth and their family formation goals?
yeah, well, it's a little bit what I was just saying, is that, first of all, as a manager, as someone who literally case managed, now is sort of overseeing, for me, it's the job, both locally and broadly, is to, as best I can, give our parents the same kind of experience I had. Although of course no two surrogacies, no two pregnancies are exactly identical, but to do our best to support them as they go through this true journey. And we call it a journey, as we know, for a reason. It's not simply a geographical destination-based journey; it's an internal journey. And so for me, that is sort of first and foremost in my mind every day, every week, every month, that we are truly helping people realize their most profound dreams. And in doing so, I mean, as I mentioned before, unless you're not alive and conscious through this, which how could you not be, given how much intentionality and deliberateness there's involved, you'll become, if you're already a deep person, you become even deeper. And you will also cultivate something, interestingly, that I think a lot of parents don't have the chance to do before they
have a baby, in other words, if they're doing this conventionally, is this kind of this reserve of patience and flexibility and nimbleness that you absolutely need to have when you're embarking upon a surrogacy journey, but especially as a parent. I mean, you have to remember, this is all about the goal. The goal is to become parents. And sometimes you can confuse the trees to the forest just getting to that point through surrogacy. But that is, in some ways, the point, is to go through that confusion sometimes, the broadening, the enriching sort of part of it is really what happens in addition to achieving the goal.
Well, thank you very much for your answers, and you have it from a person that has gone through it and talks to many intended parents through either consultations and case management. Now, all of this to say, when you choose to work with Tammuz, you're not just signing up for a surrogacy program. You're embarking on a transformative journey with a team that has been where you are, genuinely cares about your dreams of parenthood. Surrogacy has made significant strides over the past 2 decades, yet it was not too long ago that the prospect of having a child through surrogacy felt unattainable for most families, often due to legal, financial, or even personal hurdles. And in 2008, as Jon was mentioning earlier, Jon Mozes established the Tammuz family because of his personal experience with surrogacy, with a clear mission, which is to help intended parents overcome these barriers. As comprehensive international surrogacy agency, we both support parents and surrogates with the expertise, the experience, and the passion that we have cultivated over the nearly 17 years of helping diverse families grow. Offering accessible and affordable surrogacy programs to individuals and couples from all walks of life. Whether you're a same-sex couple, a single parent, or a heterosexual couple facing fertility challenges, Tammuz Family is dedicated to making your dream of parenthood come true. We are truly a global partner with all the experience that has afforded us. We have established 7 surrogacy programs worldwide. We have 15 offices on 5 continents and a dedicated team of 65 professionals who have the privilege of supporting families from over 20 countries across the world. So as the slides say, many of us have been where you are and we are ready to help. So let's get into how we do this or why parents choose Tammuz. So why do parents choose Tammuz to build a partnership based on trust, expertise, and shared purpose to complete a gestational surrogacy journey, something that is so personal to most of us? So our team of surrogacy consultant, case managers, journey and parent coordinators, working together with our fertility clinics partners, will offer you a personalized support and guide you from the initial consultation to the birth of your baby, ensuring the safe return of your complete family back home. More than that, as a leading surrogacy agency made up of mostly former intended parents, our experience gives us the insight to create a variety of programs to fit the needs of as many families as possible and create custom solutions when faced with unexpected circumstances. Tammuz offers a unique model where all services are coordinated through the company, providing a seamless experience from intended parents. At the heart of Tammuz Family's efficiency is the all-inclusive approach, which is the centerpiece of which is the guarantee plan. That we'll be talking about the guarantee in a little bit. This model ensures a seamless and cost-effective experience for intended parents by providing all necessary services under one roof at one fixed cost. From completing your sperm donation to selecting an egg donor to matching with a surrogate, from the medical procedures to the legal support needed, Tammuz coordinates every aspect of the surrogacy journey. So when you join us, we'll directly coordinate with the egg donor bank, the fertility clinic, your surrogacy agency, and law firms, saving you the hassle of navigating multiple contracts. This makes our process stable and reliable, ensuring a smooth transition from one stage to the next. Importantly, with the guarantee plan, you know what the total cost of your journey will be even before you sign an agreement. We will cover this more in depth as we move later on and we cover the different plans that Tammuz offers. We only administer gestational surrogacy programs in countries with an established regulatory and legal framework. For surrogacy, and where we know we can work with state-of-the-art clinics that focus on empathy for intended parents, surrogates, and egg donors as much as they do on medical innovation and fertility expertise. Now that you've learned a little bit about what Tammuz Family, what makes Tammuz Family the premier international surrogacy agency it is, we'd love to know which reason most resonates with you. And we'd like for you to share your thoughts in the chat as we move forward.
Victor, one
Yes.
thing, they're not able to write anything in the chat. They are only able to write on the Q&A
Oh,
because the chat is disabled.
oh, we're good. I see.
It's open to everyone.
Q&A is open.
It should be open now. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry about that. We didn't know. Okay. First webinar.
I'll let you know.
Okay, so are we gonna take some questions now or do it later? That people are just asking.
If we had some questions, we would address some of them now, but have they put any questions up?
We have a few questions.
Okay.
I see them too, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you wanna,
So we have a few questions about the programs in the different territories. One will be, what are the pros and cons of doing surrogacy in the US versus Mexico versus Colombia? And someone else was asking Colombia versus Mexico versus Argentina. So
Yeah.
pretty much they want to know what's the pros and cons from doing the program in a different territory.
I think we'll cover that a little bit later in the presentation.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I will say just in this idea of pros and cons, it's sort of it's a kind of a misplaced term when it comes to surrogacy programs. There are no pros and cons in terms of what we administer, especially in terms of what you've discussed about our doing programs only where the legal and regulatory framework for doing it, wherever we're doing it is solid, and the clinic's outcomes are good. Those are the most important aspects of any IVF-based surrogacy program anywhere. In that sense, to say pro con, sort of irrelevant. I mean, each program has its own distinctions, its own exit processes, which Victor said we'll talk about later, but it's more about what are the differences really in the end. You know, it's still a very goal-oriented thing that we're doing, no matter where we do it. But those are good questions. So.
and we'll address some of them for sure as we move
Yeah.
forward in the webinar. Now, of course, in order to understand how we can help you grow your family, we must first explain what makes a surrogacy journey at Tammuz personal and efficient. Our approach is quite different from others. We don't just assist with the medical process. We offer the end-to-end support under one roof, ensuring that your surrogacy experience is seamless, cost-effective, and manageable. Our guarantee plans tend to be 20% less expensive than other comparable programs offered by agencies across the US, but in no way at the expense of having top quality medical and legal support that is needed for the journey. From the moment you reach out, a dedicated Tammuz family representative will be there to help you navigate the entire process. Our team will support you through every stage, including the initial consultation. When a surrogacy consultant will help you align your goals and needs with what is expected of you in the journey, including where best to pursue your journey and who your partners will be at said destination, including the clinic and the legal teams. Once the plan is finalized and your agreement is signed, you're introduced to your case manager. Jon, you will talk to Jon and he will introduce you to the case manager. And the case manager will guide you throughout the journey, starting with the pre-pregnancy stage. During this phase, we focus on gathering your medical and legal documentation, including identity verification, semen analysis, and arranging as necessary for genetic and STI screenings, if applicable. Next, we schedule your gamete donation clinic visit. At the same time, we will also confirm and reserve an egg donor for your plant as relevant. And when we talk about the gamete donation, that includes both eggs and or your sperm as applicable, depending on the plan that is best suited for you guys or for the single person. With everything in place, the magic begins with embryo creation. Hormone preparation, egg retrieval, and fertilization using intracytoplasmatic sperm injection, known as ICSI, which is a lot easier to say. This technique consists of a single sperm being injected into the egg to artificially fertilize the egg. The fertilized egg or blitocysts are developed to the 5th day, at which point any viable blitocysts are tested for chromosomal abnormalities. The clinic will only work with embryos that are chromosomally normal. So next is your surrogate matching. When you'll receive detailed profiles of potential surrogates, every candidate undergoes thorough medical and psychological screening to ensure compatibility. In most cases, a video call allows you to foster a personal connection, creating trust and understanding between you, the two of you, to be able to finalize a match. Once matched, IPs and surrogates sign a contract with each other, with the assistance of the legal team that Tammuz provides each party. Once the contract is signed, the surrogate is prepared for the embryo transfer, a process that can take anywhere from about 1 to 2 months. The transfer occurs at the clinic of your program's destination. The next stage is the pregnancy, during which you'll receive regular updates from your case manager about its progress. Your surrogate is monitored according to standard pregnancy protocols to ensure the health and safety of everyone involved. And then from ultrasound scans to video conferencing with the surrogate and clinic staff, each milestone on the gestational calendar brings you closer to the delivery of your baby or babies, depending on if you're doing a single guaranteed journey or multiple guaranteed journeys. The journey culminates in the most extraordinary chapter, the birth of your child. We expect and need for you to be present at the hospital for delivery of your baby. If you're having your baby outside of the United States, Tammuz will dedicate staff. We'll have dedicated staff in country to help you navigate the exit process, including especially the legal team, which will ensure you obtain parental rights to your baby properly. And this will allow you to exit the country with no problem at all. Now, if you have any questions about any of these steps, feel free to share them in the chat and we'll address the most common during the Q&A part of the presentation, or jot them down and we'll discuss them during the one-on-one consultation. In order to book a consultation, you can do so by scanning the QR codes that are now present on the screen. And this will take you to the Tammuz website homepage. And on the top right-hand side of that homepage, there is a button that says book your appointment. And there you can select a consultation with either John and I, depending on your availability and the availability in our calendars. And we'll be more than glad at that point to go into every detail of your specific case, identify what your family formation goals are, and see which one of our plans is best suited to help you achieve that goal. Now, I'm going to go over the different plans that we offer at Tammuz for surrogacy. Like I've mentioned before, our guarantee plan is the hallmark program of our surrogacy services. The guarantee plans we offer are the most requested plan. This comes as no surprise because it provides you with everything you need to have a baby through surrogacy at a fixed cost. if you need to repeat any stage to achieve a successful live birth, you don't pay more money on top of what the fixed cost for whatever the repeat or repeats might be. So the guarantee plan will give you unlimited eggs, always from an egg donor of your choice, unlimited fertilizations, unlimited embryo transfers, unlimited surrogate matchings, and unlimited legal representation, and in many programs, unlimited pre-genetic screenings of any and all embryos we create. There is no other agency in the world, I don't think, John, that provides as ironclad a guarantee as Tammuz Family's guarantee plan provides intended parents. We absolutely guarantee that any IP embarking upon a guarantee plan journey will achieve a successful live birth. We will not stop trying to achieve that goal, and parents know what the cost will be even before they embark on the journey. Our existing embryo plans, on the other hand, were created especially for families with frozen embryos who want to use them as part of their surrogacy journey. These plans offer some repeats of these stages involved, and we can go into more details about that in a possible consultation if it is applicable to your specific case. And our self-retrieval plans were created specifically for families who can and want to use those intended mothers' eggs to create embryos for a surrogacy journey. No matter which plan intended parents might elect, the surrogate is at the heart of it when working with Tammuz families. Intended parents must work with our surrogates and our surrogates alone. Now, as we move into our programs, I think this is the stage where I will kind of let you decide or talk about what are some of the key advantages or the key features of each one of our plans. So in the United States, we'll discuss what the legal framework is for it. Like, for example, this program operates within the California state regulations. The program is available to intended single parents, LGBTQ plus families, and couples alike. Tammuz Family manages the entire 18 to 20 month long journey, focuses on personalized attention from a dedicated case manager. In this case, in the case of the US program, it's going to be either Derek.
For the USA, right now, Derek Weaver is our US, yes.
Will be, and he will guide you.
Rare cases, sometimes I do it, but it's mostly Derek, who is wonderful and like all of us is US based. Derek, and by the way, Tammuz Family North America's office is physically located in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, so we're all on the East Coast. And Derek is not in Chapel Hill, but he's in North Carolina. But yeah, we're in touch with each other every day.
So for this program, we have partnered with the California Center for Reproductive Health, CCRH, yeah, which is directed by Dr. Eliran Moore, who has nearly 30 years of renowned fertility experience. CCRH is a CDC-ranked level clinic with high first-time transfer success rates and a long-time partner of Tammuz Family. Some of the key features of doing a journey in the US include obtaining parental rights before the baby is born through a birth order, regular contact with a surrogate. I think you can speak a little bit more to that.
Yep, I can.
And on average, a quicker journey versus our programs abroad.
Yeah, I mean, those are the three sort of signal features of doing a surrogacy in the US. You will necessarily need, obviously, to match with a surrogate with whom you can sustain communications well enough for the course of the journey, which means there is a kind of intimacy that gets established and cultivated early and throughout the journey. In many cases, people stay in touch with their surrogates who do programs in the US simply because of that relationship. We are working in states, first of all, only in the US, where gestational surrogacies are legal. So that leaves out doing the journeys with surrogates who live in, or would be surrogates in places like Mississippi or Nebraska. we're doing this in states where you file, as Victor mentioned, a pre-birth order, which means that once the surrogate is pregnant, the legal team that Tammuz provides, the intended parents will then, petition for the parent's parental rights in the state where their surrogate is living, so that when the baby is born, in that state, the Department of Vital Statistics has the parents and only the intended parents in the record as the baby's parents or parent. So the surrogate is never on the birth certificate. In some instances, there's some states like South Carolina, Arizona, they both have a kind of pre and post-birth order mechanism whereby there's a pre-birth order, then there's technically a post-birth order where the parents actually have to come to court within 30 days of delivery. These are rare situations, and no one is obligated to match with a surrogate in a state whose rules they don't necessarily want to deal with. But most states, it's just a pre-birth order. This is the U.S. comparatively speaking, is probably the most straightforward, streamlined place to do surrogacy. That I can attest to, certainly in comparison to places outside of the U.S., which is not to say that things are not stable and pretty streamlined in their own way in Mexico or Colombia and Argentina. But what I mean by that essentially is that when a baby is born here, especially if you're a US citizen or you're North American, you go to the hospital, the baby's born, and knock on wood, it's a smooth, uncomplicated delivery, you leave and that's it, you go home. There's not this post-birth multi-week stay in California, North Carolina, if your surrogate's here, the journey is done. Whereas to do something in Mexico or Colombia and Argentina, depending on which of these countries you might do it, Georgia, Armenia, you will be in those countries necessarily for several weeks before you can go home with your baby, because it takes longer to get the birth certificate and the passport. And depending on where you're doing it determines, who's on the birth certificate, first of all, let alone which passport. So when I say streamlined, I'm thinking mostly in terms of the exit process.
And the overall length,
And the overall length. I mean, length is, yes, we have very, verifiable averages in terms of the amount of time it takes. The US, it's about an 18 to 20 month journey, average, which means it can go longer. Rarely will it go much shorter than that. Whereas, the average length in Latin America, South America is more like 22 to 24 months. Those are pretty good, predictions. So that's assuming everything goes as you hope and expect every stage of the pregnancy. And there's no journey here that doesn't come with some delay to one degree or another. Hopefully it's lesser than more. But when that happens in the US, you're doing it within a framework where even if there are protractions or delays, the setup is done in such a way that you can get through things more quickly, especially given what happens at the end. I mean, you don't, once the baby's born, that's it, you get the birth certificate, you go. If things get longer in Colombia and Argentina before the baby's born, you still have to go through the exit process, even if it took a longer time than you thought, just to get to that point. So again, I don't want to say it's necessarily going to go faster here simply because you're here, because there can be delays. I can talk about that in my own experience.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that is, I think, a way to distinguish between doing a program in the US versus doing it outside the US.
A lot of parents also mention surrogate compensation. Does that vary per state? Does that?
There's a kind of a base compensation rate that surrogates we're working with at any given moment in the US are getting. Now, some surrogates might want more than what's established within the agreements parents are signing. And you'll know that before you even agree to match with the surrogate. If she's asking for more money for example, let's say she has a health insurance policy that you can use for the pregnancy, but she knows the value of that, and so might want more, a few thousand more dollars. I mean, this is determined on a case-by-case basis. That's in the US. In places like Latin America, South America, Georgia, Armenia, it's a fixed rate, whatever it is at the time the parents are doing the journey. There's not more money, or it's not potentially possible that a surrogate there will ask for more money necessarily. So.
Okay. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about our US program, feel free to schedule that consultation using the QR code in the last slide of the presentation. And ask away any questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can towards the end of the webinar here. Now, our next program is the Mexico plan. And so let's dive into why Mexico surrogacy program might be perfect choice for your family. Surrogacy in Mexico is legal and inclusive, providing a great option for international intended parents. The process is governed by binding legal contracts that protect the rights of all the parties involved. The total timeline averages between 20 to 24 months from the time of signing the agreement with Tammuz to the delivery of the child, including your surrogate matching, which a lot of intended parents always ask, what's that surrogate matching time? In Mexico itself, surrogate matching is about 10 months at this moment.
Yeah, it's pretty long right now. These waiting periods for surrogates, wherever you're doing it, even in the US, fluctuate, depending on essentially supply and demand. I know it sounds somewhat reductive to say that, but it's true. If you have a lot of people in one place looking to be matched, and we need obviously to match people with only highly qualified surrogates, we can't just willy-nilly match them with someone just because they're ready to be matched. We have to match them properly. And so it follows that trend. If you have a lot of people waiting for a limited quantity, then it's going to take longer. So, Mexico is interesting in that sense, both culturally, economically. There are a lot of women who want to be surrogates. Not all of them are qualified, and they go, like all the surrogates and all of the programs, through very rigorous, stringent screening process even before they're presented as potential matches. And
Can you talk a little bit about what that process is?
Yeah, well, just generally, universally speaking, all the surrogates have to be between a certain age. The age range is more, I would say, restricted, limited in Mexico. We're working with surrogates as young as about 20, and then we have recently increased the age cap there. It used to be about 30, now it's about 32, 33, which is not like in the US. The US, we work with surrogates even as, I want to say old, because I don't want to say that an older surrogate necessarily is a bad surrogate. In fact, in many ways, having someone who's had more life experiences, especially in the US, is conducive to even a stronger experience interpersonally, emotionally. In the US, it's 20 to 42, but that's not the only criterion. This goes across the board. We need surrogates to be within a certain BMI level. In the US, it can't be higher than 32, and not lower than lower than 18, something like that. They all have to have at least one child of their own before they even thought about becoming surrogates. In other words, all the surrogates we work with have families in whatever way. They at least have one child. We have to know before we might even potentially match them with parents that they know what it means to be pregnant. They know what it means to nurture and grow a baby and deliver. They have to like being pregnant. It takes a certain time to do this. Even in countries and places where the context is such that the surrogates may not be in as deep an interpersonal relationship with the parents, doesn't mean that they're not, sincerely aware and devoted to doing what they're doing. And increasingly, we're seeing even in places like Colombia, Argentina, the parents and surrogates really do need to be in touch with each other in the way that they've always had to be in touch with each other in the US. The US is interesting. These things evolve through time. It's not always fixed. But in answer to the original question, that what about these wait times? You get into the queue when you have embryos, first of all, to get pregnant, because this is outside the US. And it is what it is at that time. We can't match you with anyone who's less than highly qualified. And that's one of these contingencies when you embark on a program anywhere, but certainly outside the US, people have to be prepared to wait longer, less, depending on the time.
And importantly to note is that this timeline is within the 20 to 24 months.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it goes. Yeah, there are two big, as I say in my consultations, two big juggernauts that parents have to get through. It's first of all, it's creating embryos, finding an egg donor, going through the IVF process, which is its own kind of mini journey. And then later on, when you've finally achieved that goal, you then move to the next phase, which is finding a surrogate. And then finding a surrogate, depending on where you're doing it, will require some time. Mexico, it's pretty long right now. It's also getting shorter, and these things fluctuate. There's a kind of accordion, depending on when you do this and where you do it, where at some points it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but you're absolutely right. When we say the predicted average length of a journey is 20 to 22, 24 to 26, we're taking into account the fluctuations that are very much on the table when it comes to surrogate matching and embryo creation.
Very good. So Mexico's surrogacy program is designed to be accessible, making it an ideal choice also for same-sex couples, as well as heterosexual couples and single parents who have the dream of parenthood. And you can save up to 50% over the price of the program in the United States, with most of the same medical services, surrogate care, full legal support, and high success rates. Now, Tammuz will manage the entire process for you in partnership with Reprovita. Reprovita is a state-of-the-art clinic in Mexico City, specializing in fertility and surrogacy. A dedicated case manager, like in the other cases as well, will guide you through every step of the way, answering questions and ensuring everything is handled smoothly. Now, what are some of the unique benefits of doing a journey in Mexico versus the United States versus Colombia or Argentina or even Georgia and Armenia?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say benefits. These are all great places to do it. I say that what are the distinctions in a way? First of all, there's the contiguity, obviously, geographically of Mexico in relation to the United States. Some people, for any number of reasons, want to do it in Mexico because it's right on the border. Leaving aside what's happening politically in terms of border questions these days, but Mexico, United States versus Colombia, although depending on where you live in the United States, going to Mexico City, which is where our program is based, versus Bogota is equidistant. So, I mean, in that sense, they're somewhat the same. The costs are a bit higher in Mexico these days, and that's not to say that it's better or worse than Colombia or Argentina. Everything costs more in Mexico. It's usually because of healthcare. You can get started in Mexico. Speaking of distinctions, you can get started these days in a program in Mexico faster than you can get started in Colombia and Argentina. This goes back to not so much supply and demand, but capacity and demand. Lots of people want to sign up for a program in any number of places that we're doing it. And just because they sign an agreement doesn't mean we can send them right away to donate sperm or arrange for the shipment of their gametes. There is a kind of waiting period, depending on where you're wanting to do this, that's based on the capacity of the clinic at the moment you sign to handle whatever it is you're trying to do. So right now, compared to Colombia or Argentina, where you have to wait a few months before you can schedule a sperm donation trip, in Mexico, you send in your required preliminary documents. We need criminal background report. You have to fill out some forms, and you can go down honestly within a few weeks after signing if you've got all that stuff in place. Donors in Mexico, by and large, that people want to, you can only, by the way, in places like Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, begin to formally identify your preferred donor once you make the sperm donation trip. This is tied into what I was saying. The distinction between Mexico, Colombia, and Argentina is that in going down sooner or potentially going down sooner to donate sperm, if you are a sperm donor, means that you can get started on identifying and reserving the egg donor sooner than will be the case these days in Colombia or Argentina. So getting started sooner is a distinction. And yet, even though you can get started sooner in Mexico, as we were saying before, the wait time for surrogates is longer than it is right now in Colombia and Argentina. So
it somewhat averages out.
It averages out. It sort of evens out right now in terms of the overall length of time anyone might spend on a journey, no matter where you do it. So I think, the distinctions have to do with the timelines, which is always the case among programs, the geographical contiguity to the United States, and the cost, essentially.
Okay. So I don't think we want to go too much into this part of it.
Oh, I should mention in Mexico, one thing, and people have been asking these questions, and I've been seeing in the Q&A in the chat, is it is a place where we cannot work currently and haven't for a long time, and probably won't for the indefinite future, with people who want to ship gametes, cannot ship sperm, cannot ship eggs, cannot ship embryos to Mexico. This has to do with a quintessentially Mexican bureaucratic issue having to do with getting a permit to do that. And we can't even give people a ballpark estimate if they want to put their hat in the ring to get this permit to ship stuff to Mexico. So Mexico is truly right now with us for people who are doing a plan where they're working with a Mexican egg donor locally, the guarantee plan, or if they're going to do a self-extraction plan. The mother, the intended mother herself, is going down to Mexico City, retrieving eggs, fertilizing, and then doing whatever else does, working with the Mexican surrogate. With existing embryos and shipping gametes, that we can do only in Argentina, in terms of programs in the Americas these days.
And in the US.
And the US. I mean, outside of the US, in the Americas, the only destination that people can currently with us ship their gametes to is in Argentina. So.
All right, so let's move on to the next program to discuss here. So the next program is the Colombia program. The Colombia program offers affordable and inclusive surrogacy programs or plans backed by the Supreme Court rulings ensuring a safe, legally secure process for single men and gay couples, with cutting-edge medical care provided by exclusive partners like Salahen Clinic. This destination combines affordability and excellence. Our program in Colombia is based out of Bogota. Again, a cosmopolitan city with everything necessary to secure your safety, that of the surrogates and your egg donors. And the surrogates are carefully screened for physical, emotional, and psychological readiness to ensure that they are able to participate in a smooth journey. And our egg donors are anonymous women between the ages of 20 and 30 years old who undergo rigorous medical and genetic testing to ensure the best possible outcomes. Donors' profiles includes photos and a comprehensive family medical history. And that is also the case of, donor profiles in Mexico.
Yeah, well, everywhere, but, yeah.
And the total timeline in this program is about 20 to 24 months, again, including your surrogate matching as mentioned. Now, some distinctions, as you mentioned, of doing the program in Colombia is that the Tammuz plan in Colombia, especially for our guarantee plans, is very comprehensive. If you compare it to, say, Mexico, in Colombia, your plan includes if there's a need for a NICU, if there is a need to have the surrogate undergo a C-section, or if we need to, or if the parents elect to do pre-genetic screening for your embryos or non-intrusive pregnancy tests. These are all included in the program at no additional cost, correct?
Yeah, so as Victor said, it's comprehensive in terms of the healthcare, the insurance and what it covers in Colombia and also in Argentina. If, as you're saying, if a baby ends up needing NICU care, the surrogate's insurance in Colombia will cover that as well. And even after discharge from the hospital, 30 days post-discharge, if there's anything that arises in the baby's healthcare that is distinctly related to pregnancy or delivery, the surrogate's health insurance in Colombia, also Argentina, will cover those events as well. So yeah.
Is there anything to say about
this? But I should say, let me just, the C-section is not included in all of our programs.
Okay.
If a surrogate has a C-section, in most cases, you don't even know until delivery itself. There's always an additional surcharge. There are a number of costs with all of our programs. And this is something that we can share more with people in consultations and when they take a look at our service agreements. Things like C-sections in places like Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, even the US. There's always an additional cost that parents have to pay on top of the cost of the program if that happens, but you don't always know, obviously, that that's going to happen until it does. So this goes to preparing for your budget and thinking about contingencies like that. But stuff like C-sections, those are there are these possible additional costs are far and few between, certainly outside the US. So
is there any other distinction about the Colombia program at this point? It's taking 6 to 7 months for parents to make that original trip to Bogota?
Yeah, 6 months to just, we're saying, how long you have to wait just to get started, as it were, even though people in their minds have already started a long time ago. It's 6 months right now before you can even go down to donate sperm. And Colombia is exclusively for single men and same-sex male couples. We are not working with heterosexuals there. So really, when we're talking about the initial waiting period, we're talking exclusively about sperm donation.
Okay.
And the reason for that, speaking of distinctions, why we're only working with single men, same-sex male couples, again, this is something that in consultations, Victor and I can go into more depth, is that the exit process, the setup for surrogacy in Colombia is such that that only the biological father will end up on the birth certificate.
And that's proven through DNA tests.
DNA tests, but even, leaving aside the question of DNA, if, for example, an intended mother wanted to do surrogacy in Colombia, she would never end up on the Colombian birth certificate. She'd never end up on the birth certificate of her own baby. And so, although there are some intended parents who are willing to take that on, we don't really think it's a good place psychologically for an intended mother to be in. I mean, essentially, once in such a case, the mother would actually have to adopt her own child to have legal rights. So Colombia really is not for heterosexual couples, it's for single men or same-sex male couples. And even if it's same-sex male couples, it's still following the biological father. So, even if you've got two husbands, it's only the biological father in that case who's going to be on the baby's birth certificate, which means even in a same-sex male couple, the non-biological father, once he gets home, still has to do an adoption of his partner's or his husband's baby. But in some senses, it's easier for a man, I think, to do that psychologically. We certainly think it's not as fraught a prospect as it would be for an actual mother. So that's an important distinction to keep in mind, as opposed to Mexico, where we work with all different types of intended parents, and also in Argentina.
So that original birth certificate will only ever have just one father,
Yeah,
biological father. And then once they come to the United States, they'll have shared custody through a second parent adoption. But the second parent will never be in the birth certificate.
No, and yeah, and it's, shared, I mean, the assumption is that if you're, same-sex male couple, we treat you as fathers, you're presumably treating each other as co-parents.
Yeah.
But honestly, for the non-biological father in that situation, whether it's Mexico or in Colombia, it's only once they get home, whatever they have to do according to the laws, statutes of wherever they live, in order to get parental rights to the partner's baby is what they have to do to really kind of finalize that. Mexico, heterosexual couples, though, both the mother and the father will be on the Mexican birth certificate from the start. And in Argentina, well, we haven't talked to Argentina, jumping ahead.
Oh, we're going there.
Oh, we're going to Argentina.
We're going to Argentina.
Yeah.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
Like John was saying, surrogacy in Argentina is open to both same-sex couples, heterosexual couples, and single intended parents of every gender. This makes Argentina an ideal destination for a wide variety of intended parents seeking affordable options for surrogacy. First, our partnership with Selahem, South America's top fertility clinic. It's the same clinic that we work with in Colombia. They have, as of 2023, opened a clinic in Argentina, and by effect, we have followed them there. This is South America's top fertility clinic, ensures expert in vitro fertilization, transfer, and care of your surrogate every step of the way. But additionally to that is the clinic's charitable program that I always like to mention to parents. Do you want to expand a little bit about that? What that offers surrogates and how surrogates are really well cared for in these two programs, Colombia and Argentina?
There are, as we say, there are foundations established in both countries to ensure that the surrogate's welfare is kept up throughout the entire surrogacy process. Now, again, we're not matching parents with surrogates who have not already been very carefully evaluated, both medically, psychologically, and economically too. We need to work with women who are within a particular SDS level. We can't work with women who are, so close to, as one might say, the poverty line, where the possibility that they're doing this mercenarily is too much a risk. But even with all that said, there are cushions, there are places for surrogates, not simply economically, but just emotionally, psychologically, where they can get resources, insights, supports for themselves to carry on the work of gestating and delivering for parents. And that's unique. We have these foundations, these places. And also, I believe in Mexico at this point, we have that as well. So
that part I didn't know.
learn something new. Yeah.
Okay. As far as the exit process, what does the exit process look like in Argentina and the birth certificate compared to the other two options in Latin America?
Argentina, which has gone through some interesting evolutions more recently in respect to this very question. Right now, first of all, we can work with heterosexual couples, we can work with same-sex male couples in Argentina. Argentina is not recommended for single parents, whether they be male or female.
Okay.
And in the end, both parents in a couple are anticipated to end up on the Argentinian birth. Initially, however, it's somewhat of a hybrid thing. It reflects or somewhat mirrors what happens in Colombia. Only one parent in Argentina will end up initially on the birth certificate. And in this case, it doesn't matter whether it's the biological parent or the non-biological parent. So this in some cases is advantageous, for example, for same-sex male couples, in which, let's say, we have one husband or one partner who's a US citizen and the other one isn't. and they want to go back to the United States, and the baby in question is the non-US citizen's biological child. In Argentina, in this case, the non-biological US citizen father can elect to be on the birth certificate initially and thereby allow get the US passport in Argentina for his non-US citizen husband's baby to be able to return home, which would not necessarily be the case if the non-US citizen father were on the birth certificate. I mean, we don't take any responsibility or liability for what it takes or what parents have to do to get a US passport. But in light of this situation, which we face sometimes, Argentina offers an option that might make the process easier. Whereas in Colombia, it would be harder to do that. So anyhow, what was I saying? So yeah, so both parents will eventually end up in the Argentinian birth certificate, but at the outset, it's one parent and the Argentinian surrogate. And then the parents are responsible, as they are in any country they might do this, to go get a US passport in this case, or Canadians, if we're working with Canadians, for their baby to be able to go home. And then once those parents are home from Argentina, and they engage, as we assume they will, in a second parent adoption in their own country, whether it be in Canada or the United States, they then provide proof back to the Argentinian legal team that they are engaging in an adoption process back home. And then the Argentinian team will start the process of integrating the parent who was not on the Argentinian birth certificate initially, so that in the end, both parents will end up on the birth certificate.
The original birth
On
certificate.
the original birth certificate, and they've also done an adoption in their own country. The surrogate is removed. That's a distinction. This is getting quite granular, and it's stuff that Victor and I, for those who want to set up consultations with us, can go over and over again, because sometimes it's hard for us to remember the if this then that. There's a lot of conditional situations that you have to sort of work your way through to see where you end up in these programs.
And this is why we recommend that you guys book a consultation,
Yeah.
because during those consultations, we'll be able to identify the specific case-by-case scenarios and go into depth on how to navigate them. But one of the things about the exit programs that I wanted to compare across all of them is the timeline. So in the case of Mexico, you're looking at about 8 to 12 weeks after the delivery of the child, that you expect it to be in country after the birth of the baby. In the case of Colombia and Argentina, it's about 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
In Colombia, right now, it's more like it can be 3 in some cases, but I would say 3 to 5. Argentina, for those, and this is realistically, I think what's going to happen now, is going to be closer to 8 weeks, because when a baby's born in Argentina, theoretically, they don't need the home country passport. They don't need the Canadian passport or the US passport to go home to US or Canada, depending where the
They got
parents
an
are.
Argentinian passport.
Right. However, at least, in the US case, in order for the baby to go back to the US, they'll need a visa on the Argentinian passport. And right now, anecdotally at least, it's going to take months just to get that visa. It's going to take a lot less time to actually wait in Argentina to get the actual US passport and finish the deal and go home than it is to actually wait and get the visa on the Argentinian passport and then go home and figure out the passport situation there. So realistically, for US citizens, the current advice, the current understanding is that if they're going to go about it in the way that we're recommending and advising, is that they really do have to wait out the time in Argentina to get the US passport, which these days is taking anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks after they get the Argentinian passport and the Argentinian birth certificate. By the way, the Argentinian passport, the Argentinian birth certificate, like in Colombia, those things are procured usually within a week or so after delivery. So it's not a big difference in time before you actually engage in the home country citizenship process. But overall, in Argentina, if you think about both of these processes, getting the Argentinian birth certificate, the Argentinian passport, and then applying for the US passport, it's about 6 to 8 weeks. Colombia, both of these separate processes, about, let's say 4 to 5, maybe 6 weeks. For example, if the baby's born on Christmas Eve, forget it, everything closes. You're going to wait till January to finish it. But those are the distinctions.
So the total time in Argentina, how much would you say would be? They're asking if it will be around 20 to 24 months as well.
I think right now, because, again, it goes back to in some places, these parts of the journey are shorter, in some countries it's longer.
once things get started in Argentina right now, it's taking less time, for example, to find egg donors in Argentina, less time to match with surrogates, which means that they end up in theory with a baby more or less around the same time that they might in Colombia or Mexico, where, you can get started sooner, but then in those places, things take longer later on. So the average, when we say 20 to 24, 22 to, well, it's about 20 to 24 right now in Latin America generally and in South America. And that doesn't include the exit processes we're talking about. When we say exit process, we're talking post-discharge from the hospital at the destination of the program. So speaking of distinctions, when you think about distinctions between, going back to what we were talking about way back when, US versus outside the US, the exit process, and I mean the entirety of it, is, leaving aside the rest, is really a big distinction. There is the added time after you've achieved the goal. You have your baby, why can't you go home right away? That is, I think, truly one of the pivotal distinctions. So perfect. Thank you.
So I will let you kind of cover this one since I'm not.
Yeah, and I think we're getting close to, we want to leave some time for questions. I know we're running over, so I don't know if people are still with us or I hope they are.
No, they are.
Yeah, it's
The
good.
same people that started are still.
Oh,
with us.
good.
I think we've lost 3 people.
Oh, great. Well, hopefully
Um,
they'll schedule consultations if they're interested. So Georgia. Georgia, we've been in now for about 5 years. It's a very good place to do surrogacy. We have a very strong, long-standing relationship with our partner clinic there, which is, the German Georgian Reproductive Center, otherwise known as GGRC. Georgia is a program that is exclusively for heterosexual couples. It doesn't matter whether they're married or partnered. They have to have been partnered in whatever way, maritally or domestically, for at least a year. And the Georgians, with all due respect, are very pedantic. And maybe they're getting less pedantic because we have more and more interest and we're trying to explain to the Georgian legal authorities. There's a lot of people who want to go to Georgia, but there's a lot of proof of relationship that parents have to provide the Georgian team before they are formally approved to move forward with the program there.
Is that even for existing embryos?
For everyone, yeah.
Okay.
No, again, when I say these things that might sound pejorative or negative, I really am not trying to put any value on it. It's just, it's the nature of what the program has in place for people to do it. So it's a very good program. We've got lots of babies born there, hundreds of babies.
What are the 3 plan options there?
3 plan options in Georgia. We have the guarantee plan, we have the self-extraction plan, and we have the existing embryos plan. So unlike in Mexico, for example, people are looking for an alternative to the US. For whatever reason, might not be interested in going to Argentina. Georgia is the option, a very good option.
I have an IP here asking, what if the process, if they already have embryos, if they can work with a surrogate in Georgia?
Yes, of course. Yeah, Georgia and Armenia, we'll talk about in a bit as well, are both places that IPs, intended parents who have existing embryos, who just as we say need a surrogate, can have their embryos delivered to these countries and go about, as we say, an existing embryos plan. And in both of these places, we also offer, as we said, self-retrieval plans, self-extraction plans, where the intended mother is using her own eggs with a sperm donor, presumably her partner or husband. And in that way, we create embryos and we find them a surrogate. So those options are also very much available both in Georgia and Armenia. And GGRC, the German Georgian Reproductive Center, is also the clinic in Armenia.
And who ends up being in the birth certificate and how long is that exit process?
So in Georgia and Armenia, I'm sort of combining these things, and I the interest partly because it's the same clinic and also time. Both parents will end up on the birth certificate from the start in both of these countries. In Georgia, necessarily be a Georgian birth certificate. In Armenia, an Armenian birth certificate. And the running time, as we say, from discharge from the hospital to getting on the Georgian birth certificate is about 14 to 21 days, somewhat comparable to Colombia, although unlike in Colombia, we are working only with heterosexual couples in Georgia. And they will only get a Georgian birth certificate. They're not going to get a Georgian passport. Like in Colombia, parents get a Colombian passport. In Argentina, they get an Argentinian passport. It's like Mexico, not to confuse things even more. Mexico, you don't get a Mexican passport. Georgia, Armenia, you don't get Armenian or Georgian passports. You just get the birth certificates, which means, like in the other countries, the parents then have to go to their embassy, their consulate, and apply for the home country passport for the baby in order to leave and go home. So if you're having a baby in Georgia or Armenia, you absolutely must be able to get the passport from your home country in order to leave with your baby.
And among all of these programs, when we provide legal support.
Yeah.
What are the two things that we usually provide legal support with? When we talk about legal support for all of our programs.
So when we're talking legal support, very good question. We're talking unlimited legal representations, for example, in the guarantee plan. We're talking about everything that's happening in the country where this is happening, where the plan is taking place, to A, go into a contract with a surrogate, and B, to go through the exit process in the country on that country's side of things. In other words, how do I go into a contract with a surrogate in Buenos Aires? How do I go into a contract with a surrogate in Mexico City? How do I go into a contract with a surrogate in Colombia, Georgia, Armenia? The legal teams that we are working with, our partners in these places, are all taking care of that, and the costs for those services are included with the program that you're doing.
Regardless of it being an existing plan or
Irrespective, yes.
a guarantee
Yeah.
plan or a self-extraction
Exactly.
plan. Okay.
What is not included, what we don't take care of, as it were, is everything that we've been talking about in terms of how do I get a US passport? How do I get a Canadian passport? Everything as I've been referring to as the home country citizenship process, that is the parents' full responsibility to take care of on their own. Do the research about what it takes to do it, costs, the applications. They really, that is something that we have no liability for, the outcomes. We certainly can provide the parents in these situations with any documents that they specifically might need for their case to get a US passport. In other words, if the parents are doing a program in Colombia and for whatever reason, in order for them to get a US passport, they need, document A, document B, document C from the Colombian team, we are certainly there to help facilitate that. But the nuts and bolts of getting the US passport, getting the CRBA, consular report of birth abroad, which usually precedes getting US passport, all of that is fully incumbent upon the parents to do on their own, which means, and this is something that Victor and I consult parents about all the time, is that when someone is getting seriously interested about pursuing a program outside the US, it behooves them, certainly early on in the process, if not by the time they're getting pregnant,
In a second.
that they really consult with an immigration attorney in their own country, in their own state, actually, to find out as much as anyone can know that far in advance about what to reasonably expect to do once they have a baby in order to get a US passport, because then that is beyond the purview of what our programs service and provide. Yeah, so legal services, again, are for going into a contract with a surrogate and getting the birth certificate later on. Now, the US, it's different. The US is, well, not different in the sense that it's, the legal services that we include here with our programs are about going into a contract here, known as the GSA, the Gestational Surrogacy Agreement, and then later on petitioning for the parental rights to the pre-birth order. Now, if you're a US citizen, there's none of this passport stuff here. You're on home turf.
You're a Canadian?
Canadian is a different story. A Canadian, obviously, you're not. In these days, it might take longer to go back to Canada, even if it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from wherever you're having your baby, because right now, as everyone knows, through President Trump's recent orders, that any baby born here now, whose parents are not US citizens, will not get US citizenship. They will have to apply with their home country's embassy or consulate for a passport to be able to leave the country and go back home. So that's new, and we are monitoring that very regularly and carefully. That's particularly the US. You would think that might be something that's happening outside the US. No, it's happening here, as we all know. And hopefully that will change. But that, by and large, doesn't affect the cohort of parents that Victor and I and Sebastian are working with, because we're working essentially only with US citizens. But we also have a few Canadians as well. I mean, the North American office is working with parents who live in the US or Canada. So.
And I don't know if you want to go a little bit. I think you've talked enough about the Armenia program. I think we can.
Yeah, Armenia is our newest program. I won't spend too much time on it. It's in a lot of ways it mirrors what's happening in Georgia. It is, I guess, less pedantic in terms of what's requiring of parents to prove their relationship. Armenia is for single parents, both men and women. So, for example, single single-intended mothers or fathers who are looking to go to Argentina no longer can do it. Armenia is a very viable option for them. It's also a place that we work with heterosexual couples. With heterosexual couples in Armenia, they do have to be married. So unlike in Georgia, you can be unmarried or married. In Armenia, you have to be married. And if you're not married at the time that you want to pursue the program in Armenia, you can get married in Armenia. If you could do a quickie Armenian marriage, I don't know what that sounds like. It might sound a little off-putting, but for the purposes of being able to pursue the program there, that is very easily done. I think the biggest difference between Armenia and Georgia, honestly, is the need to actually go in person to sign legal papers basically at the outset of the journey. In Georgia, once you're approved, once you pass through the gauntlet of being approved, you can do everything virtually. In other words, aside from doing a sperm donation trip, if you're doing that in Georgia, you don't actually have to go to Georgia in person until the delivery of the baby. Obviously, you have to go to wherever you're doing this in person for delivery. Armenia, it doesn't matter who you are, what plan you're doing, you must show up in person to sign things in person. That is a distinction in Armenia. But the costs in Armenia are comparable to what they are in Argentina, somewhat comparable to Georgia. This is all within a more or less a similar budget range. It's far for North Americans, obviously. I think it's going to become increasingly attractive and appealing given the way regulatory and legal frameworks are changing in the Americas that are, for example, shutting out intended parents from Argentina. For a while, that became a very appealing place for single intended mothers and fathers. We can no longer really do that in Argentina. So Armenia is now here, even though it's much farther away. And in the end, despite the distance, the costs parents will incur in making these trips and doing the programs usually ends up more or less around the same price point as it would in the Americas, outside of the US, that is.
So at this point, we're going to turn things over to Sebastian and see if we can answer some of your questions.
So John has been answering a few of them. One of them, they're asking, is there any age limit for intended parents to do a journey with us?
Yes, so we have age caps in terms of certainly sperm donors. In the United States, at least one of the parents, it's a sperm donor in the US can be no older
Than 60
than
years.
60 at the time of signing an agreement. And at least one of the parents in the US has to be no older than 60 at the time of signing the agreement. In Mexico, the age cap is 55. The sperm donor can't be any older than 55.
And I think the age limit for using your own eggs is 40 years.
So 40 across the board. Yeah, if you're doing a self-extraction, self-retrieval plan, clinics will not really consider intended mothers looking to work with their own eggs for over 40. And even then, they have to be approved in terms of assessments and results that they provide the clinic in advance of scheduling an IVF. In Colombia, the age cap is 55 at the time of signing an agreement. In other words, if you're in a couple, if you're a single intended father looking to do a program in Colombia, you can be no older than 52 at the time of signing an agreement. And in Georgia, it is also 55, I believe.
In Georgia, 60.
And Armenia is 60, I think.
Armenia is 55, Georgia is 60.
Oh, Georgia, excuse me, I got that backwards. Yeah, so Georgia is 60 and Armenia is 55.
There is one that they're asking, you work with the clinics that can keep gametes, embryos for a long period of time. QIP wants to have a first child and then have another one later. Can they switch from a single guarantee plan to the double guarantee plan?
It's a good question, and this is something that we will, finesse in a consultation when we talk about what it means to do a single plan versus a double guarantee plan. The long and short of it is that any gametes that are donated in the course of a single journey, the storage of those gametes until you achieve a successful live birth or births, if you're doing a double plan, the cost of that is included with the program. You're not paying. It's only once you have a baby or babies and you want to keep your materials cryopreserved wherever you're doing this, whether it's sperm or embryos, if you're remaining embryos, then you start paying an annual storage fee, and those rates differ depending on where you're doing it. In the US, it's about $800 a year. In Colombia these days, Argentina, it's about $1,200 every 2 years, and I'm not sure what, but those things only kick in once you finish the journey. Any remaining unused embryos that you create in the course of your journey are yours in perpetuity. Technically, they're your property. That's somewhat harsh to say, but you've created them, you bought them, and those can be used in any way you want. You can use them for a future journey with us. For example, as part of an existing embryos plan, we have many return intended parents who created embryos in a previous journey. Now they're having an existing embryo plan. You can have them brought back to wherever you live to use as you wish. You can have them discarded. No matter what, no clinic is going to discard anything without prior consent from the parents before they might do that. So this is quite tight in terms of how it's done, as it is in the US, of course.
Perfect. They wanna know if is in Armenia and Georgia, same-sex male intended parents are allowed to do the program there, and also the wait times in both territories.
Yeah, so same-sex male couples cannot do programs in Georgia. It's for heterosexual couples only, whether married or unmarried. In Armenia, it's interesting. You can identify as gay, but you have to, and you can be partnered as it were, but you have to be single, and you have to be able to provide proof of singledom, as it were. You cannot be cohabitating with a male partner, even if you identify as gay, to do the program in Armenia. So you basically have to be truly single. They will need verifiable proof of that in Armenia.
And the wait times?
The wait times in Armenia are very quick right now. I mean, people can get started right. It's a new program. It's always at the outset of a program. We have a pioneer group of parents. And so capacity is larger than demand, and that eventually changes. So capacity is good right now. Demand is growing, but people can get started very quickly these days in Armenia. Egg donors, this is the case wherever anyone might pursue a program. It depends on who you want. No one is forcing you to work with this egg donor or that egg donor. Depending on who you're interested in, it may be short wait, it may be a longer wait. I mean, that is one of the million-dollar questions. Who do you pick? Who are you yoked to, as we say? And that will determine, processes moving forward. But egg donors are available generally in Armenia and Georgia. It's the same egg donor database, a few months. 2-3 months in some cases. It varies. Again, it depends on the people pick.
Okay, the overall timeline is 18 to 20 months.
Yeah, the average journey right now is 18 to 20 in Armenia because it's new and the capacity is big right now.
If they are not interested in doing the guarantee plan, does Tammuz offer something outside of that guarantee plans that will help them create embryos and do the process in a different way?
Yeah, in effect, when we say non-guarantee, we're talking mostly about existing embryo plans in which the number of repeats you get for certain processes is limited compared to what you have in the full guarantee plan. Or we're talking about self-extraction or self-retrieval plans, where again, the number of repeats, for example, how many IVFs do you get, how many transfers do you get, is limited. And in that sense, we consider them basic in comparison to a full guarantee plan, where, as Victor outlined earlier on, you're getting everything that's fundamentally integral to achieving a successful live birth, unlimitedly for the cost, unlimited eggs, fertilizations, transfer surrogates. We have in places like Georgia, basic plans in which you are, well, it's sort of in line with what I'm saying now. You're working with an egg donor and you've decided that you're only going to do one IVF as opposed to a guarantee plan in which you get unlimited IVF. You're only doing one transfer in a basic plan, whereas you with a guarantee plan, you get unlimited transfers. So those are the main distinctions between non-guarantee and guarantee that we offer.
If someone has their own egg donor, how can they use that egg donor for their journey, and how that will impact the cost?
It's my favorite.
Yeah, we get this a lot. No, it's an understandable question, of course, because so basically with you're looking to work with your own egg donor, you're bringing an egg donor into the program. You can certainly do that. Obviously, by its very nature, a self-retrieval, self-extraction plan is your own egg donor. In this case, it's the intended mother who's using her own eggs. For people who want to create embryos with an egg donor who's not part of the egg donor database that's affiliated with the program that they're doing, they certainly are able and welcome to do that, to create embryos independently and then integrate them into our plan through an existing embryos plan. But that is the way in which egg donors external to our program can be worked with.
So they cannot actually go through our clinic and donate at our clinic and have us create the embryos.
Yeah, well, so in the US, in other words, if someone wants to bring an external egg donor into our program, they can do the extraction and fertilization wherever they want and have the embryos delivered to our partner clinic, which is in Los Angeles. This is for the USA program only. That is probably the only place currently where someone could bring an egg donor actually to the clinic and do a retrieval for the purposes of creating embryos independently. to use later on as an existing embryo plan. In places like Argentina and Georgia and Armenia, which are the only other places that we are currently doing existing embryo plans, you basically have to create the embryos a priori. You have to do them wherever you are living and then have them delivered to the country. Unless you're doing a self-extraction plan where the mother is obviously going to Georgia or going to Armenia to do it. We are not doing self-extraction plans in Argentina right now. So Argentina really is truly exclusively for existing embryos, for those who are working with embryos that they're creating independently. But we're not doing self-extraction in Argentina.
Do you have a document summarizing in one place all the differences between all the programs that you have?
Yes. So when we consult with people, as we hope many of you might move to do after today's webinar, we will go through a lot of what we discussed and then some, and then we always follow up with lots of written materials in which you can compare the programs, what's offered, what's not, what are the distinctions in terms of exit processes. This is obviously so complex, lots of differences to keep in your mind at one time. So yes, by all means we do.
So there is a lot of other questions.
We're at 6:30. I think we do have to.
This is okay. We'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of it. There's a lot. This is great. I mean, I've tried to answer some questions as we're talking.
Well, this one,
Oh, yeah.
like, someone is asking if we offer free consultations.
Yes.
So that's the best way to.
Yes, free consultations. As many as you want.
That is the goal of
That is
today's.
the goal. And with that in mind, we do want to say, again, we urge you, if you are interested in learning more and with more detail, that you do set up a consultation using the QR codes, or you can go to the website, tammuz.com, and set it up that way. There are any number of ways to do that. We are offering a $1,500 discount to anyone who signs an agreement with Tammuz Family through our office, who signs before the end of March. So that is something that we will talk about with anyone who sets up consultation soon and is in a position to sign an agreement. And so that is something to keep in mind.
Yeah. So thank you all very much for joining this webinar.
Yes.
It was truly a pleasure to share how Tammuz Family can help you navigate the world of surrogacy. And we look forward to speaking with you via a consultation. Like he said, feel free to schedule the consultation using the QR code. That'll lead you to the website. On the top right-hand part of the website, it'll say book a meeting, and you can select John or I, look at our Calendly links, select the date and the time that works for you, and we'll be glad to, at that consultation, talk about what are your family information goals and identify which program is best suited to help you achieve those goals. Thank you very much,
Thank
and have a wonderful night.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was great.